Do you want more misunderstood movies and madcap slumber party fun? Well, join us. Join our supercore at patreon.com/cinema-insomnia. You can get exclusive perks and help us make this 16th season your favorite Cinema Insomnia season ever. Become one of our patrons. I think you're a patron at Patreon. Yeah, I believe that's how that goes.
Does Tron go to Patreon?
Oh, I hope so. I love Tron. Patreon.com/cinema-insomnia.
This space for rent. This signal space to your ears for rent. This space between your ears for rent.
Do you have a product, service, website, company? Propose, perhaps? No, we don't want to do that, right?
If you can't propose?
Well, I mean, if you really wanted to propose...
It would be encased forever.
Johnny says, will you marry me, Susie? We could do that, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Why not? If you have a product or service or whatever to promote, people, especially that you want to promote to our listeners, why not become a sponsor?
A sponsor, you say?
Yeah, a sponsor of this program. Contact Mr. Lobo at his personal email. I'm giving this out right now just for you. Okay, don't tell anyone.
Shh,
all right?
Whisper it.
Mr. Lobo, that's MRLOBO, at cinemainsomnia.com. CINEMAINSOMNIA.com.
That sounds so sexy.
Yes. Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com. Contact me and we will get you on the air. We will talk about your stuff.
Your stuff. I believe this is the point where we start the program. Huh?
Oh, that's right. So why don't we get this program started? All systems go.
Hurrah.
Attention, Sleepless Knights. Thank you for consuming this OSI 74 product broadcast live from the Black Knight satellite. For optimum performance and safety, your host, Mr. Lobo, asks that you please listen to these instructions carefully. When in a hospital or other healthcare facility, observe the restrictions on the use of electronic devices. Switch off before boarding an aircraft to prevent interference with communications systems. Do not operate this device in the presence of flammable gases or fumes, chemical plants, or where blasting operations are in progress. Always listen hands-free while driving a vehicle. Failure to observe these instructions may lead to immediate termination. It's time now for the show to begin. Thank you. Have a very pleasant evening.
You're not dreaming. You're here in the dark with Paul Sanders and Mr. Lobo for another Sleepless Knights podcast. pODDcast. That's right. Paul, how are you? This has been a rough...
Low energy, that's how I am.
Damn.
This is going to be fun.
The role of a producer. People don't think about the role of a producer. A producer is important because even when we're dog-ass tired and we've been working all week doing all manner of insane projects, the producer is still there to say, aren't we supposed to do that one more thing?
Yeah. Here's the mic. Speak into this.
Yes. And, to be a producer is to be responsible for production. And to be a producer is to produce. And that means there has to be a show. There always has to be a show.
The show goes on.
And I think that people who podcast as a vocation or a avocation, as a job or as a hobby, when you work for yourself,
you're pretty damn insane.
Well, you are insane. But if you work for yourself, there's no, I'll just put it off, or maybe next week, or, after I, drop the kids off at soccer practice and, whatever. And I might have some time on this other day. And then that day comes and you're like, oh, I'm really tired after dropping the kids off. So I don't feel like it.
I want to play some Atari today.
Yeah. Time to play some Atari, some Intellivision. I want to play a little Mr. Do or some...
or Diet Do.
Yeah, or Diet Do. That's the lesser-known video game, yes. More obscure video game. Robotron. Sinistar. So if you don't if you work for yourself, working for yourself is the hardest thing in the world. Let's just be honest, no matter what you're doing. If you got to get yourself out of bed to do the thing, even if it's something that you want, even something that's your dream. It's like, I want to be that guy that does that thing without someone putting a boot up your ass. Excuse my French.
Unless you like that kind of thing.
Well, some people do.
They like to be worn like a shoe.
And Paul is that pantsless boot for Mr. Lobo a lot. And I appreciate it, even though I don't look or sound like I appreciate it. But we're here recording yet another podcast for you. This is, as promised, we are continuing with our viewer's choice. Asking, you ask us, we tell you what you want to hear.
Continued from the last episode.
Yes, and we got a lot of great comments, questions, and things that demands, yes, polite demands, a helicopter, $10,000 in unmarked bills,
few not polite demands.
Yes, a nubile, sex slave, all the things that you might ask for. But
and now that you announce what I'm doing next week, got to keep those Patreons happy.
Just oh my God. On everyone's birthday, Paul's going to be doing the nubile sex slave work. So Paul, we got 2 questions from Kelly, and the first one we answered last week.
Okay.
About traveling, and we want to be everywhere. That's the short answer. So we just need money.
We want to be in 51 states in 2
If we had the money, we'd be all over the place. We'd be meeting each and every one of you in person. But the big question, which was too big to answer in that last 10 minutes of the show, is this. This is for both Paul and Mr. Lobo. Actually, for both Mr. Lobo and Paul.
I was going to say, is it just for Mr. Lobo and Paul's just going to chime in regardless?
No, it's really for Mr. Lobo and Paul.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. You are specifically included.
Oh.
What are some of your favorite films to watch? And what do you think is the truly worst movie ever made? And now this may seem like a real direct question. We live in a world of this is number 1 and this is number 2.
And this is number 1 because of financial reasons.
Yes.
And this is not a hit because of financial reasons.
Right. And, the whole philosophy of cinema insomnia, besides they're not bad movies, just misunderstood, is that every movie is somebody's favorite movie. Every movie is somebody's least favorite movie. And that changes sometimes within the same person within their life. I always wanted to do a parody of a movie review where the movie reviewer just reviewed RoboCop every week. And so the first week, it's like, I just saw RoboCop. It's an awesome satire, and it's fun, and it has so much action, and I give it 4 stars. And then like the next week,
I can cross that one off my list.
And then maybe the next week, maybe he has a new baby, so he's real sensitive about the violence or whatever. So then he comes back and says, hi, I'm here to review RoboCop again. I'm really concerned about the violence in RoboCop.
That thing that I loved last time.
I'm a new father now, and I don't know how I feel about this violence in RoboCop. And then maybe years later, their kid graduates college or whatever, and they're real excited, and they watch RoboCop again. And
because they just got it out of the dollar bin. They bought it for $1.
Yeah.
I bought that for $1. I'll buy that
for $1.
Yeah,
they bought it for $1.
Long stretch for that joke.
Yeah, and it paid off though.
Yeah.
It was worth it.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, I saw RoboCop. I gave it another try, and boy, that film was a lot of fun. I give it 3 stars, and then the guy's wife leaves him, and he reviews it again. Oh, I give it 1 star. I hate that movie. So
she left me because of this movie.
Yeah, my wife, So again, sometimes when you say what's your favorite movie, that's what's your favorite movie right now.
This second.
A lot of times that happens with people is that they have a view of themselves. Are you going to play the dog shit card already?
No, I was just fumbling with the cards.
All right.
But it just happens to be the dog shit cards on the outside.
I was
fine.
Paul's rolling his eyes, playing the dog. I'm talking too much.
Play this one too.
The Paul's resting card.
Paul, rest. We're going to shoot you tomorrow.
No, we're not going to shoot you. We're just going to shoot video tomorrow.
I thought that's why I needed my rest, so I could run.
Yes, that's right. You're going to shoot you, so you better run.
You better run.
Get your rest now. I think that with the show, other than people's moods changing and such, I think people have an image of themselves, like the clothes they wear, the things they do. And a lot of people set these things when they're like in high school. I like rock music. My favorite food is pizza. I like to, Star Wars is the best movie, of all time. And they take these things through their whole life. Even if maybe their tastes have kind of changed, they still, when people ask them, they have their parroted response of their favorite thing, even though their favorite thing right at that moment might be something else. So with all of that rigmarole and BS said, we decided that we would break the concept of favorite films to watch into different categories. And then Paul and I would just sort of riff on it, and this is what we're feeling right now. How we're feeling
right now.
We didn't really.
Now, when we're editing this a little bit later,
That's
our
how
feelings
I'm
could
feeling.
change.
Yes, by the time you are listening to this, this is all obsolete because who knows how we even feel about these things. All right. So, favorite films to watch. So, Paul, you have some suggestions?
So I got some stuff. Now, here's the thing that when we used to go to the video store was one category. It was action adventure. Now, do we consider this action adventure or do we consider this action and adventure?
And adventure. Well, Paul, what do you consider if we were to split it into two, what would you consider an action movie versus an adventure movie?
Well, adventure movies, obviously, Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I could see that.
Right?
Yeah,
but that also fills the action category, doesn't it? He's punching Nazis in front of
punching Nazis,
airplanes.
But I guess the thrills of that is not. I mean, the thrill of it is the whole journey more so than the fighting, right?
Right.
Like I would say, stereotypically, a movie like a martial arts movie is an action movie because it's really not where they're going,
right?
Or even the outcome.
So like Kickboxer or
Cyborg
Kickboxer
or Kickboxer,
Kickboxer 2,
Kickboxer 2, or Stopper My Kickboxer Will Shoot.
Rambo.
3 kickboxers and a baby.
Rambo would probably be an action.
Rambo is which is weird because Rambo is, I think, a stereotypically action, right? Same with Rambo. I probably is the most stereotypical action movie.
Rambo.
Right? Is action always
Commando.
Fighting? I mean, is there
so.
any other kind of action in an action movie other than fighting?
Race cars? Is that action? Would you consider Fast and Furious an action movie?
It's not an adventure movie.
No.
So I guess that in that case the action is driving.
It's the sexy cars.
Right?
Right.
So okay. Well, let's dive right into it.
Well, then we'll start with action.
All right.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite action film?
Favorite action movie?
Right this second.
I would say Aliens.
Aliens?
Because I don't really consider Aliens a horror movie.
Or sci-fi?
Not really. Because
Aliens or Alien? I guess I should specify.
Aliens.
Okay.
Aliens.
The sequel.
Because I feel like that movie doesn't even need to be sci-fi. I mean, that if it were a bunch of Marines on some island with a bunch of bugs, it would be the same movie, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that as far as an action movie, I think that's probably one of my favorite action movies.
I'd like to see your video store.
Where's Alien? Oh,
Over
that's
by
in action. Where's Alien? Oh, that's in horror. Where's Alien 3? Oh, that's cult. Yeah, where's Alien 4? That's comedy.
That's in the garbage.
And that was another movie I actually almost walked out on was Alien 4. Yeah. I really didn't like. I just thought they betrayed the Ripley character. We won't go into that now, but we'll just leave that alone. So that's action
that
movie. So
exist.
I would say Aliens. Just off the top of my head,
Aliens.
that's what I consider an action film.
I'm stuck in between either Die Hard or Lethal Weapon, any of them.
Lethal Weapon, any of them?
Pretty much any of them.
Because it's just the same movie, right?
I mean, Lethal Weapon, if I have to pick one with Lethal Weapon, probably Lethal Weapon 2 spoke more to me than any of the
what
others.
is James Bond?
Would that be adventure?
Is it action? It kind of is action.
I guess it would be action.
And it's kind of adventure.
But it's kind of adventure. Maybe that's action adventure.
Is it sci-fi? Sometimes it's sci-fi.
Depending on what era, I guess.
Sometimes it's, that's a tough one. Because I might think like there's some spy movies that kind of go in that category. Danger Diabolique.
See if I have spy movies.
Can I say
written down
Danger
here.
Diabolique? Is that an action movie?
I don't know what that is. So
You don't know what that is?
I don't think so. Sounds familiar. Tell me a few bars.
It's he's a jewel thief. He's a gentleman thief.
Oh,
And
the
he's
Pink
got-
Panther.
Not the Pink Panther. he's got kind of a Spider-Man kind of suit. Like he has a I think a gray one and a black one. And he has like a secret underground layer with with giant computers, and he just does these super crimes. He's like a super criminal.
Okay.
It's
I
great.
don't think I've seen it.
From the 60s. It's the same.
That's probably why I haven't seen
Dino
it.
De Laurentiis joint, and it's sort of like Barbarella. The sensibility is like Barbarella. You know, it's very high styled.
Okay.
So that's
So now that I'm going to watch that, now that's going to change my results.
So Aliens and Diabolic, yeah, as my action films. And Paul's like right on the money.
Like
Die
Die
Hard
Hard and
Lethal Weapon
2.
There you go.
If I had to pick
So
one.
there you go. You got the meat and potatoes version, and then you got the mineral water version of
Which am I?
I think you're the meat and
Meat and
potatoes version.
Is that because I'm not wearing pants?
Well, yeah. Paul's letting his meat and potatoes into this conversation.
Should we try to cram adventure in here or go right to break?
Let's quickly do adventure.
All right, we'll go with adventure. Go ahead.
I would say Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. I would go with Temple of Doom.
Ooh, that's Dixie's favorite.
That's my favorite, and that's always the black sheep of the series. A lot of people don't like that one.
Yeah, I think that it sort of has that sort of Gunga Din vibe. It doesn't have God and Nazis, which I think people like to see in their Indiana Jones movies.
It has a god.
Yeah,
It's kind
just-
of
but
a
not
Satan.
not the
Ish.
white true Christian God.
Right.
But we both think Raiders of the Lost. We're both thinking in the Indiana
Yes.
Jones series for adventure.
And I think that for me, the reason why that one sticks out more than anything is that's probably the first movie I remember seeing in the theater. You know,
Yes.
so that probably sticks out more than Raiders. I was probably too young for when Raiders came out to even have seen that. Although I've seen Raiders when it first came out in VHS.
I'm going to say another one for adventure, Buckaroo Banzai.
What?
I know you don't.
Buckaroo who?
Yeah, I know you don't like
Who, Rapunzel?
But that movie, but see, that movie's also sci-fi. But there's a lot of, it goes through a lot of paces. But it is about the journey. It's not about where you're going or anything else. It's just
not where it ends.
It's just taking these characters from one stupid situation to the next.
I don't think I have a second. I don't know if I can throw another one out.
You can't throw another.
Oh, really?
I just figured since we both did Indiana Jones, I would do like a
different one?
weirder one.
Okay.
You know, because
Right.
that's definitely more.
That's your definite one of your high-ranking favorite movies. So if it doesn't make on the list somewhere, it has to make it.
Yeah. Yes. It is one of my favorite films. And
Sharp-eared people would know that Buckaroo Banzai is in the procrastination video.
it is.
It's-
And
you have to listen really
you have to
hard, but it's there.
Close. And there's a Buckaroo.
So is another favorite
And then
movie.
Ready Player One, the guy's dressed like Buckaroo
Yes.
Banzai.
Well, there's references to it, in the book.
So we want to go to a break and then
We'll
come
go
back?
to a break and then we'll come back.
All right. We'll be back with more of our favorites.
Buckaroo, President's on line 1, calling about is everything okay with the alien spacecraft and Planet 10, or should he just go ahead and destroy Russia?
Tell him yes on 1 and no on 2.
was yes, destroy Russia or number 2.
Indiana Jones. That was the big winner in the action adventure category. And I think that, it's one of those movies that's very self-aware. It's trying to put itself in that category of adventure. And growing up in Northern California, I had a neighbor who went to school with George Lucas. And apparently George Lucas read a lot of comic books. And you can see that in his movies. I think that the Indiana Jones movies are very parallel to the Scrooge McDuck comics. You travel all over the world and you get a bunch of weird artifacts from all over, right?
So DuckTales.
DuckTales, yeah. Right. Well, DuckTales is definitely the animated version of those old comics, certainly. All right, so
Okay.
we're moving on. Paul, what's next up on the docket?
How about we go with a hard one? How about Art House?
Let's get this one off of there.
Get it out of there.
Because I don't even know what to classify.
Well, a lot of things can be considered art house. I really love a couple of weird ones. There's a movie called Koyaanisqatsi, which is a lot of time-lapse photography and weird stock footage and NASA footage and footage of cave paintings and, cities sped up and cars sped up. And it's got this amazing kind of synthesizer soundtrack going through the whole thing. And it has no plot whatsoever. And it's a great thing to put on when you're working because it doesn't matter what you're watching. Another one that I would put in that category would maybe be Eraserhead, early David Lynch.
Haven't seen it, so.
Never seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Really creepy, atmospheric, black and white. You don't know where it's going. It's really strange. A lot of uncomfortable scenes, and it doesn't. You wonder what his motivations were in making it because it doesn't follow any pattern of any genre.
So what's your pick after explaining all that?
Well, I picked those. I would
Those
say
are your
those would
picks?
be so
Those are your
for
picks?
right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would.
Would
say
you
that.
consider like Dark City maybe an art house film?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll go with
sure.
that one since
All
I don't
right.
really. Nothing else is really coming to mind.
Yeah, I mean that's a movie where it's a smaller movie, but it's really strange and kind of. Is that high concept or low concept? I always get confused.
I think it's high resolution.
But Dark City is definitely that could go in a couple categories. Cult probably too.
Sci-fi.
But that certainly wouldn't be playing at the Megaplex. They wouldn't be lines around the block for that movie.
I saw that in the
that would probably
big theater.
be playing. Usually, a movie like that might play in a smaller theater. Certainly at a revival house now because it's an older movie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that calling back to this is one of those where it's a financial failure because it never played well in the theaters. But it's a good movie.
Yeah,
it's
it
a
is.
real thinker. It's not.
Yeah.
We're going to tell you everything.
No, it's not.
And some pretty good cast members too.
There's a couple other movies that I want to throw out there that are similar to that. And I would even say something like Akira could be an art house movie,
Okay.
even though we haven't got to the
Akira or
animation. Akira?
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 Yeah. You pronounced it differently. Say Kira?
I just said Akira.
Akira.
Did I do not the not enough in my Kira?
Maybe.
Okay. That is an animated film based on a comic book. See that? And again, comic book movies might be a category too.
Well, look at that. It's on
So
there.
a lot of things go cross. We cross the streams a lot in movies. It's very hard to keep them straight in one genre. That's why I think Paul was like raising an eyebrow when I'm saying that Aliens is a action movie. It's both. It's a sci-fi movie and it's an action.
Well, it's always was said was that the first one was always more a horror film. It just fell in this sci-fi category, and the second one was action film but it was still a sci-fi.
Well, and Terminator, if you think about it, is just Halloween with a cyborg. It's just Michael Myers as a cyborg.
Terminator. I forgot about Terminator.
Unstoppable killing machine and a female victim trying to get away from it. And it doesn't really matter if that guy is possessed by a demon or whether he is a insane murderer or whether he's a cyborg or whatever trapping you need to explain this event. It's still a stalker trying to kill someone for the whole movie.
Yeah. Honorable mention Terminator 2. I don't know where to throw that though. I guess that would be action.
It could be action.
That would be action.
I would say Terminator 2
No, that
would be
gives me
action.
3.
Yeah.
There's a lot of 2s in my list. I think,
Yeah.
and that's one a rare find because a lot of people don't like 2s.
It's interesting because sometimes the 2s are the strongest, right? The second one is the strongest. There's a few school. It very rarely is the third one the best. It's really like, oh, each one got better than the last. No, usually not. Usually it's like the first one, it's like proof of concept, and then the second one they get everything tight and working, and then the third one kind of falls apart. Like I would say the Star Wars movies, obviously Star Wars, the first Star Wars is always the original, and people often say the original is the best, but there are a lot of people in the camp of Empire Strikes Back being the strongest and having the most depth and the most to chew on. They all need each other, of course, because they all lead into each other, but I think everyone agrees that Return of the Jedi is not the strongest of those 3 films.
And I think for me, sequels are probably the strongest because just like Temple of Doom, that's a movie I've seen in the theater.
Right.
Terminator 2 I saw in the theater. I didn't see Terminator 1. I was probably not old enough for Terminator.
Yeah.
Lethal Weapon. I saw Lethal Weapon 1 on VHS, but 2 I saw in theaters. So I think that there's probably the aspect of this is something I saw on the screen versus something we just rented or whatever.
Well, and I think before reboots were a catchphrase, or not catchphrase, but a format phrase, or whatever you want to call a reboot, or remakes and reboots were kind of really common, are commonly thrown out there. But in Hollywood in the 70s and 80s, a lot of times the sequel was just a reboot. You know,
They just regurgitate
the same
what's there.
story with higher stakes, like Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2,
Highlander.
Highlander, Terminator and Terminator 2, Alien and Aliens. I mean, even though Aliens is a sequel, it happened so much later than the first Alien. The two, but the storyline is that they come out of hyperspace, the hypersleep rather. They come out of hypersleep. They have to deal with this nightmare of aliens and being taken over by aliens, and then they defeat the aliens, and then they go back to sleep. Right. So the story is somewhat.
Don't wake up from sleep.
Don't ever wake up from hypersleep. That's what you're supposed to learn from that. And even Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead and the second Evil Dead,
correct,
have pretty much the same storyline. They're just reworked
because they had access to higher graphics or higher. I don't want to say graphics. I want to say
effects.
So they
higher
just
technology with the effects and a bigger budget.
Right.
And
so this is kind of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to redo it and just include this stuff.
And I know that in the case of some things like Addams Family and Addams Family Values, they felt like the filmmakers, or Barry Sonnenfeld, what I heard anyway, felt like he kind of fumbled with the first Addams Family, so he wanted to make it up by trying to make the second one more ambitious or better. I don't know who would think the second. I mean, I guess some people think Addams Family Values is better than Addams Family, but I think they did fine with the first Addams Family.
What happens in Values? His Values is when they already have the kid.
I think they've got the baby in there.
Is that when they're ejected from the house, or that's the first one? Second one's when she goes to camp. She goes away to camp.
Right. There's some funny jokes.
Is this lemonade made out of real lemons?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are those Girl Scout cookies made out of real Girl Scouts?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's some great jokes in the second one, but it's interesting that philosophy of we're going to redo. This is what we wanted to do the first time around. We just didn't get there.
We'll keep with the crappy track. How about we go with romance next? Get this one off the list.
Oh, yeah, let's get this out of the way. Romance movies. Shape of Water. Wouldn't you say that's a romance movie?
Would say, but I haven't seen it, so I can't really put a vote in on that.
Even though that's a horror movie, I mean, it's very romantic. I remember liking Annie Hall a lot, the Woody Allen movie. That movie is kind of like this romance that over a long period of time of two people who've had a relationship over a long period of time.
Would Baby Driver fall in romance? Would I put that in there?
Well, I don't know, because he's kind of distant for a lot of that movie. You know what I mean? I don't know if the romance pushes that movie.
I think
forward.
the romance picks up on the third act.
Yeah,
when she becomes threatened.
Not like the romance in
Spoilers.
Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Attack of the Clones.
Oh God.
Someone jumps up on top out of a giant flea cow in the middle of.
Are you an angel?
Oh my God!
That's not the second one. That's the
No,
first
that's
one.
the first one. I do resent romance being injected into movies indiscriminately. I feel like that's divisive.
Romance always seems to be just the same movie, just reskinned every so often.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, we're human beings. We have obviously natural attractions. We have to procreate and mate and meet our mate, and that's part of what moves us forward through our lives. And it's easy to motivate a character by going, that girl I like is in trouble, and I'm going to save her, and then we'll get married and have babies. So. I don't know. I just, a lot of times I feel like, is that what this story's about? Is that what every story has to be about? I do feel like I don't mind a romance movie, but I sometimes feel like it's a cheap device to make to motivate a character in a lot of movies.
So yours is The Shape of Water?
I would say for right now, that's probably the most romantic film I've seen in a long time.
I think I'm just going to bail with maybe Only the Lonely. That's John Candy.
Oh, okay.
And John Hughes, one of the earlier John Hughes, I believe. We'll go with that. Ali Sheedy, I think, is the one he's in love with. Is that, if I got that right? I don't know. I'm just pulling it out of my ass because I don't want to say Pretty Woman or anything else. Cause...
and I'm thinking off the top of my head too. I would think like 16 Candles is a romantic movie, right?
I guess. I don't know if I'd say I've seen that.
I hated Pretty in Pink.
Right.
Good Lord. I saw that again in the theater. And I didn't like it before because I felt like they sold the nerd out, It's like she ends up with the jock at the end of the movie. And it's like, oh, great, especially as a nerd, as a teenage nerd as I was. It's like, it was an affront when that movie came out. I was like, oh, great, we need to be sold even shorter, But I guess the reality is that Molly Ringwald is an awful bitch. Sorry, Molly Ringwald, if you're listening.
Well, she's never going to be on our show now.
And
there goes our Real Girl 7.
And
Real 7 girl.
She wasn't attracted to John Cryer, who was the nerdy guy. So they changed the storyline to suit her. I think is how I've heard that. And in the behind the scenes stuff, it seems that sort of rings true because she admitted she wasn't attracted. And then my answer to that is, you're an actress. You don't have to be attracted to the lead. You have to act and serve the story you're making. Find it in yourself to love that nerd. Anyway,
can we get one more in before the break?
That was it. Sorry, that's it for romance.
You think?
What?
You think we can get one more in before break?
One more romantic film?
No, one more film in general.
Oh yeah,
one genre.
Let's try one.
How about biopic?
Oh, that's easy for me.
Okay.
Ed Wood. I think that, and it's tough to call that a biopic because it's more like a Back to the Future movie, which, and by that I mean it's a comedy with historical affects to it. I wouldn't say that what happens in the movie Ed Wood rings true with the true events of his life, but I feel that the spirit there, that they were all misfits trying to make it in Hollywood, the general concept of this was a guy who was trying to be an auteur and really had no discernible talent to do what he was trying to do. I mean, he had talent, but he was spreading it really thin. I actually think that anybody who can write a movie in 2 days is pretty talented. It's just that when you're trying to write a movie in 2 days and produce it and direct it and you've got a role in it, you do.
And you got to bow to your sponsors.
And you got to bow to your sponsors. It's just diminishing returns. But the exciting thing about that movie is that anyone who's ever tried to do anything, either if you're an artist or if you have a band, or you play music, or I think that thing is an inspiring thing for anyone who's tried to do something or tried to do a project with your friends.
So when are they going to make the Mr. Lobo and Pantsless Producer biopic?
I hope they're making it right now.
Yeah.
And
or do they have to wait until we die?
Who would play you? And who would play me?
I don't know. You would play you and I would play... No, we'll mix it up. You play me and I play you.
Oh, perfect. Well, I'm going to take off my pants now in preparation.
I'm still not putting any on.
Big roll.
Big roll. Keep your big roll away.
Two pantsless producers, no waiting.
Now here's the thing is we're.
Are we going? I thought we were going to go to break.
Well, I still didn't give my biopic.
Oh, okay. What's your?
Don't I get a vote?
Yes.
Well, I was going to say here's where the list gets corrupted because I'm going to say something that's more influenced by something I've seen recently versus something that I may remember. Right. And I'm going to disqualify. I would have said like there's a Three Stooges biopic, but that was made for TV, so I would disqualify it because of that reason. But I would go with The Founder.
Oh,
that was a pretty good biopic.
What was it? Michael Keaton, and he's the founder of McDonald's.
McDonald's.
Was it Roy Kroc? Is that
I believe
the
so.
real guy?
Yes. Yes.
Wow, I didn't see that. Was it good?
I liked it.
Was it funny or was it not?
It wasn't funny. I mean, he's serious. He's serious, and he's a dick.
Well, he and Molly Ringwald would get along really great.
Yeah.
So wow, and then and McDonald's didn't sue them to the Stone Age. I mean, this movie.
Yeah,
just
that's what I was trying to figure out is how McDonald's even let them get away with everything they did. I mean, maybe they don't care. Maybe there's like
they're so
just
big
money.
that it's just like who cares?
It's promotion. It's promotion one way or another.
I guess you just eat that hamburger and go, boy, that guy was a jerk. Could you pass the ketchup, please?
Yeah, give me some fries.
Wow, that's that. Now I'm intrigued. I want to see that.
Go for it. It's on Netflix.
And I guess everyone knows. I guess the Ed Wood movie. That's a Tim Burton movie.
Yes.
Johnny Depp plays Ed Wood. Ed Wood directed Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is notoriously the worst film ever made. Is what they always say.
That's what they say.
And I think that was the other side of Kelly's question was, what do we think? We're not going into this now, but I'm just saying that I think that's. Plan
foreshadowing.
9, Plan 9 is the reason she asked that question is what do we think is truly the worst film ever made?
And one of your favorite movies is about that film.
Right. And I was in the remake of Plan 9.
Right.
So it all ties together. So we're going to tie ourselves in knots here and we'll be right back.
We come from the retro future. We want you to be nostalgic for what's to come. A new channel and distribution network for smart people with bad taste, featuring content from Church of the Subgenius, Creature Features, Cinema, Insomnia, Sleazy P. Martini and Guar, Trauma, Corey Maccabee, horror, sci-fi, Saturday morning cartoons, midnight movies, and assorted trash we love. Add our channel OSI74 to your Roku player or visit OSI74.com. All systems go. Finally, a party game for all that useless knowledge. Play the award-winning, best-selling, world's greatest trivia card game, Movie Buff. A game about every motion picture ever made. Order now from PurvisGames.com.
Oh boy, I love going to the movies. It always confuses me when people bitch about the movies because I love the movies, and even if my team loses, even if my feet stick to the floor and people are talking, I still most of the time have a good time because most of the time I'm not just watching the movie, I'm watching the audience too, and I can enjoy a bad audience sometimes because I get a vicarious thrill out of watching other people be uncomfortable. So if I'm in a room full of people who aren't enjoying a movie, I sometimes start liking the movie a lot more. So I'm a sociopath, basically.
Feeding off
I remember seeing.
I am growing more powerful.
More powerful. I feel the hate growing in you. I remember seeing Alien.
Help me, Annie. He calls him Annie.
Stupid little orphan Annie. So I remember seeing Alien 3, and audiences who saw Alien brought their families and kids, and then the first scene is like Newt getting an autopsy, and then just like this is so brutal. There's rape and everything else happening in this movie. And I mean, kids are crying, and couples are arguing with each other and leaving. And by the time it came to the end of that movie, where everyone felt ripped off, spoilers, by the end of that movie because of how what happens,
right?
Which is interesting because when
I'm sure we can spoil it now.
I guess so. When Terminator goes down into liquid steel, that's a satisfying ending.
Well, he's also giving the thumbs up, so he's good. I'm good.
When Ripley goes down into liquid steel and she's taken the queen with her, that's bad. right? That's a bad ending,
Right.
even though it's the same ending for both of those movies. So I loved Alien 3 coming out of it because the audience was so angry with it. The whole audience was so pissed off that it somehow filled me with joy. I may need to see a doctor to see why I felt that way, but it made me like that movie that people hated it so much.
Cool. Sure.
Anyway, so what's next on the docket?
How about a couple of quick ones? How about anthology film?
Oh boy, there's so many.
Right.
Oh,
when I wrote this, I'm like, well, there's just this one, and then I sat there and thought, I'm like, whoa, there's more than what you think.
There's so many. And you know what? Anthology is probably one of my very, very favorite genres of film.
And most would associate it with horror, but I guess like wouldn't Kentucky Fried Movie be more of an anthology film than anything else?
Yes, it would. Kentucky Fried Movie would fall into that category. I think of Creepshow.
Mm-hmm.
I think Creepshow is a very well crafted anthology and so fun. And then Heavy Metal is probably one of my other favorite anthology films. It's basically playing in a comic book movie, playing off Metal Hurlant or Heavy Metal.
Well,
the magazine.
Creepshow is also playing off the comic book
And I guess that's
too.
true. Yeah, it's
At least
sort
the
of
first one is. I don't know if the second one
imitating
is.
Let's talk about Creepshow 2 for a minute. Creepshow 2 was terrible, but it has some moments. The one
Which
with
one's
the,
Creepshow
the one
2?
with the wooden Indian is
Okay.
lame. The raft, the thing in the water was scary. I thought I liked that one. The thanks for the ride, lady. That's a good story.
Okay.
But you only get 3.
The cockroaches isn't in that one?
No, that's the first
one?
movie.
Okay.
So the first movie you get 5. The second movie you only get 3. So you're already getting a little ripped off.
A little bit, but you're getting more story you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck, I guess.
No.
Because they're not shortchanging it to cram 5 stories?
No, I think that with Creepshow, the whole concept is that you're just building up for that shock, right? You're building up for that it's like a peep show, right? That's the play on words. It's a peep show or a creep show. The creep show is you've got if in the peep show you do a little striptease and then the boobies come out. In Creepshow you have a little bit of story and you get to see a monster. Right?
And sometimes the boobies come out.
And sometimes the boobies also come out. So actually, I don't know if there are any straight tits in Creepshow.
Because he's about to kind of have his way when they're stuck on the raft. He's about to have his way with the girl, and he flips her over, and she has the gook all stuck
Does
to her
she
face.
have her
But I think
boob
he takes her top off.
Oh, okay.
I believe so.
Well, in the first Creepshow, I don't think there are any boobies in the first Creepshow, even though
aside from Leslie Nielsen. He's a big
just
boobie.
boob.
He's just a boob.
Actually, he's the heavy.
Yes,
he's
the villain.
serious. Yeah. So Creepshow and Heavy Metal. There you go.
Creepshow, Heavy Metal. I think in this category, I think I'll save the comedy category and I'll just go right for Kentucky Fried Movie in this category for this instance.
Wow. Well, it would certainly work in comedy, but Kentucky Fried Movie is brilliant. And Fistful of Yen, which is the final segment of that film, or close to it.
Close to it.
It's the main segment. It's the meat of that episode, or meat of that film. It's such a perfect Bruce Lee film parody, and it stands on its own. It's very entertaining.
It can almost be its own movie.
Yeah,
it almost runs long enough for its own movie.
It runs long enough to be its own movie. But all the other Catholic high school girls in trouble, and what are some of the other ones?
Well, they always had the news breaks in between. I'm not wearing any pants. Film at 11.
Big Jim Slade.
Big Jim Slade, which that comes back twice. That's an ongoing joke through. The morning news.
Yes, the morning news bit with the guy, the remote.
But I don't know what to
dressed-
expect because I'm a Pisces.
The arrow kills him out of nowhere.
Which is also a running
Gemini.
gag.
I think it was
Or Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a Gemini, so I don't know what to expect.
You got, was it Peter, or what's his name?
Feel Around, right?
Yeah, there's the Feel Around. Henry Gibson.
Henry Gibson.
Where's the death?
Yeah, what is it?
Death is the leading cause of death in the United States.
But it's like the something for the dead, the organization
for the dead,
or something like that.
yes.
Yeah, all of those bits are really well done.
My
really
all-time favorite
funny.
bit is the zinc oxide and you educational film.
Yes,
Yeah.
where they're
that
showing
brassiere
you-
you're wearing.
Yeah, they're
Your fake leg.
Yeah, they're the setup is that it's just a housewife in an average kitchen, and then all of these things bing disappear to show you what your life would be like without this certain chemical that's in everything. Like either a school film or an educational film, or even some commercials follow that kind of
Yeah,
format.
there's some commercials in the whole piece too. I mean, the Catholic high school girls. There's also Cleopatra Swartz. Cleopatra
Burned the
Swartz.
ghetto to the ground while he lit the Sabbath candles. That's Armageddon.
That's
There's so
Armageddon.
many great short bits in that. Midnight Show is going to be kind of like that when that film finally comes out. So Mr. Lobo will get to be an anthology.
Oh, there's the courtroom drama too, where they're
I think it's just called Courtroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ba-ba-ba-da. Are you aware of the penal codes in the state? Yeah. Yeah.
we come from your planet. We come for your planet.
Yeah, so many great comedy bits. If you have no idea what we're talking about, do yourself a favor and see the Kentucky Fried
See it.
Movie.
If you're in Phoenixville on what is it, September
15th?
15th,
I
I
think
believe.
so. It's playing at 7:30 for free.
I have never seen it on the big screen.
Yeah, so
I'm
we will
hoping
be,
I can-
Paul and I will hopefully be there. Yeah, cross our fingers. But yeah, yes, anthology films, comedies and horrors are a lot of anthology films.
I don't know. I know I've told you this, but I don't think I've ever said it on the podcast. Where it's like Kentucky Fried Movie is probably one of my first exposures to USA Up All Night.
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
seeing that up there, and then later on, it's like, well, this is a pretty funny movie. I like this. Recorded bits of it, and I was in intro to video editing at the time, so it's like and he would allow us to rent movies and bring them in, and he had this one rule. He's like, well, as long as it's not porno, and he had this big box, and it was just nothing but tape.
Shreds,
because he would just take it. He would just take if you were caught with porno or whatever, because he's like, oh, this jackass thought he was going to edit porno, and he's like, and I just busted it up, and he has to deal with it. And watching it on VHS and sitting on the editing bay, and we get to Catholic high school girls in trouble, and I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah,
because that is not played the way it's played on television.
No, not at all. Just big naked breasts pushing against the glass of the
yes.
shower. And,
oh boy,
Yeah,
it's like fast forward.
Yeah,
I hope the teacher's not watching.
I remember that being on cable, and just I think my aunt or someone like jumping up and covering the screen with her body when that scene came on.
You're like,
It's like, oh, there's pornographic movies on the TV. But a great satire and a great anthology. And can we think of a non-horror or comedy anthology real quick? Like one where it's just, I can think of one. New York Stories. Have you ever heard of that?
well, I've heard of it, but I don't
There's
know.
3 films. One of them, I believe one of them is Woody Allen, and I think another one is I want to say who's the guy who did Apocalypse Now?
Francis Ford Coppola.
Francis Ford Coppola. I think Francis Ford Coppola might have been another one, but there were 3 films, short films about New York put together.
I lost it. I had one in mind, and I forgot about it. God damn it.
And I would even say like Monty Python's Meaning of Life is sort of
that's all
sort
broken
of
up.
anthology quality to it. Yeah. So there you have it.
Oh, Sin City. That's the one I was thinking. Is Sin City kind of?
Yeah,
That's
is.
all short stories
Yeah,
that combined
I think
into an
I think
overall
it's
arc.
3 stories and they all combine. Yeah, that's or Pulp Fiction. Oh, Pulp Fiction. Wow, because I really like Pulp Fiction, and that is an anthology. That one, I don't know if that goes to the top of the list, but Pulp
We gotta
Fiction
resort the
great
list.
too. Yeah. So there you have it. So there's a non-horror or comedy anthology for you.
Okay. How about we get some big ones out of the way? Here's another one that if you were in the video store, it was the same category. It was sci-fi fantasy.
Okay.
What determines
Oh, yeah.
sci-fi? What determines fantasy?
I have an unpopular opinion about horror and sci-fi and fantasy, is that I believe that horror and sci-fi are subgenres of fantasy. So fantasy is the larger piece, and then that breaks down into fantasy being toward horror or fantasy being toward sci-fi.
No, I guess what is the general consensus is fantasy is
Sword
medieval,
and, sword and sorcery, sword and sandals, sword and sorcery. I think that is
not necessarily elves and stuff like that, because I guess Conan has sorcery in it. I was going to say Conan.
Conan has sorcery.
Yeah. Would Krull be a sci-fi, or would Krull be fantasy?
I think it's both. Well, I think a lot of them combine into fantasy. I mean, Star Wars was actually billed as a fantasy film.
Mm-hmm.
It is a space fantasy because really it's a fairy tale. You know, it's knights and creatures in outer space. It's wizards, space wizards.
Space wizards.
Star Wars is just Space Wizards,
Ghost.
the movie. Yeah.
So which one are you going to go for sci-fi?
For sci-fi?
Yes.
Oh, sci-fi. Jeez, that's tough. You know, growing up, and they talking about like the 14-year-old version of myself. My whole life, I've told people that my two favorite films are Brazil and Blade Runner. And I still really, really, really love those films. But I can't tell you the last time I sat down and watched
either.
It's been a while since Brazil. But I love Terry Gilliam's Brazil. If you don't know that film, that is, it was originally going to be called 1984 and a half. It's like a George Orwell kind of dystopian future. It's comedic, it's satirical, and has a lot of really weird, crazy effects and effect sequences. And if you like Monty Python, Terry Gilliam was
one part of it.
Was 1/6 of Monty Python. Michael Palin is also in Brazil.
Yes.
As Mr. Lint, and it has all the things I really like. It's postmodern, and that's a category that we probably aren't going to have. But I actually like postmodern movies, and if you don't know what postmodern is, it kind of unstuck in time and culture. So Pulp Fiction is also, I would consider, a postmodern movie because it doesn't. You know, what year does Pulp Fiction happen in? It's kind of in the past, but then it's not really. You know, and even the Tim Burton Batman from '89, has a postmodern aspect to it where it's sort of the '40s, but kind of the '70s, but maybe a little bit of the present day, and it's sort of futuristic, but it's kind of old. And even Blade Runner, I think, has a postmodern aspect to it. It's sort of the 40s, kind of the future, you know. So I like movies like that where they're not so attached to a really specific time period. So, but would I still put Brazil and Blade Runner as my two favorite sci-fi movies? Used to be Star Wars forever.
Yeah.
But I feel like that
Star Wars ranks on there, but I don't want to put it on this list.
I think it's too easy.
It's a cop out.
It's like saying your favorite band's the Beatles. It tells you zero about that person.
But then for me, it's like I'm trying to figure out, well, what would be the replacement if I'm not going to say Star Wars? What would be that thing? Star Trek? Would it be Planet of the Apes? Would it be?
Yeah, it's tough.
Is Planet of the Apes really sci-fi?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's in the future supposedly,
or is it in the past?
Or it's in the past.
Is it in the retro past?
It was Earth all along.
It was Earth all along. Spoilers.
I think, but yeah, I'm still gonna go with Blade Runner.
Blade Runner? Is that your final answer?
I think I'll go with Blade Runner for right now.
Okay.
What about you?
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure what to fill in without naming Star Wars. And then it's just like I don't know what to fill in. I mean, I like Planet of the Apes, but I don't think I like it that much to fill the gap.
I mean, Star Wars.
You're saying Brazil.
Star Wars is no slouch.
Yeah, you're saying Brazil and like 12 Monkeys is coming up. Where it's like, well, that's a pretty good, and that's Terry Gilliam as well. And it's got your action and stuff. There's a lot of
12 Monkeys is a great movie. Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen it though. Yeah. It's been a long time.
Blade Runner is one of those movies that it's the impact of it was not critical or financial, but the impact of it was so strong stylistically. Like every city in every movie after Blade Runner wanted to be Blade Runner. And the same thing with Road Warrior, which I guess Road Warrior, is that an action movie?
That's what I was. Is Road Warrior a fantasy movie?
It's kind of all of it. It's a little bit action, it's a little bit sci-fi, and it's a little bit, what was the three things? Fantasy.
Fantasy.
It's a fantasy action sci-fi.
Yeah.
And Road Warrior, like Blade Runner, stylistically affected so many movies. Like every movie, every dystopian, or not dystopian, every post-apocalyptic scene after Road Warrior wanted to be Road Warrior. Every dystopian scene after Blade Runner wanted to be Blade Runner.
I think what I'm going to go with sci-fi, because I originally was going to put this in a different category, but we may nix this category. I think what I'm going to put for sci-fi is I'm going to put Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one.
Oh!
That's what I'm going to put in there.
Wow. And that's a great sci-fi movie. And
It's
a
a good
lot of
sci-fi
fun.
movie.
And so many ideas in it. You know, so many great ideas in that movie, you know, where that was a lot. That's the first time in a long time I saw a gee whiz kind of sci-fi movie where I came out of it literally being blown away by the spectacle of it.
And they're all basically losers. They're the loser club that just
and again,
the best of what's left.
Right. And that's the Ed Wood aspect, right? Where it's just sort of like you and your friends trying to do your best. It's up to you to save the world, but really you can barely get out of your own way.
Do you want to do fantasy before we get out of the?
Let's do
I mean,
fantasy.
we're a little over, but we'll do fantasy since we already have that one.
Do it.
Go ahead.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you. What was your final answer on sci-fi? Are you still sticking with the?
I'll do Blade Runner for now.
Blade Runner? Okay.
For now.
Okay.
But it has been Brazil in the past. Fantasy. I really enjoy the first Conan a lot, and I come back to it. I really enjoyed. There was one movie called what was that movie called? Damn it. Oh, Krull. I like Krull. I think Krull is a good fantasy movie. Beastmaster. God damn it. Now I've got too many. But do like the Sinbad movies count? Like the Sinbad and the Eye
Like
of the
the
Tiger? Yes, the comedian Sinbad.
The comedian Sinbad?
Yeah, right.
So what? Jingle All the Way is your favorite movie?
Exactly. No, I'm thinking like Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger or the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad.
Why not?
I mean, those are pretty
Those
amazing
had theatrical
too.
releases, if that's what we're.
And they were fantasy
Categorizing.
films. Jason and the Argonauts. I think I'm going to go with Jason and the Argonauts.
Clash of the Titans?
Oh, man. Clash of the Titans is really good, too.
The original, not the remakes.
See, I don't even think of myself as a fantasy fan per se, but I love when I see a movie and there's creatures, there's a lot of ideas in it, and those movies are adventure movies, too, you know? People always talk about the Star Wars movies, and they're like, "Oh well, I don't need to see this movie because I don't need to know what happens between point A and point B." And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, if you frame it like that, but really with these movies, they're supposed to have adventures. It's not really about. It's about the journey. You know, they meet the tree people, and then they meet the Hawkmen, and then they go to the ice planet, and they just keep going. You know, my big drag with the Star Wars movies, especially recently, it's like they go to a desert planet, and then they go to another desert planet, and then they go to a third desert planet, and then there's a Death Star, then there's another Death Star.
Wait, we're talking about Star Wars, or we're talking about Flash Gordon?
Both. But then there's Flash Gordon,
Yes.
the 1980
Yes.
Flash Gordon, which is a remarkable fantasy.
How many
and
nightmares did you have when he had to put his hand in that thing?
in the tree?
Yes.
Oh my God. That was like the most raw thing I ever saw when I was like, I don't know when that movie, 9, I guess. I must have been 9 years old or 10. And putting your hand, when you're with the tree man and you putting your hand in that tree, and there's that, we don't know what that thing is that's in there. But
Is it a scorpion?
Your brain goes crazy wondering what's going to happen to that guy. Yes, that's another great fantasy sci-fi film. Flash Gordon with Sam Jones as Flash Gordon.
Right.
What's really funny
kinda
is
crosses
that
the
I
line.
was somewhere and there was somebody was like, I hope they never remake Flash Gordon. And I'm like, Flash Gordon's a comic strip.
Yeah.
Flash Gordon was made into a movie in the 30s, and then it was made into a movie in the 50s,
And a radio drama.
Yeah, and a radio drama. It's like you can't. The remaking is not an option. It's
And
just
then it was remade as Star Wars.
it's an adaptation. You know, people get really upset about Planet of the Apes. It's an adapt. There's a book. You know, it's like it's not fair that one person makes the movie off of that book and then nobody else gets a shot at it. Frankenstein, that was a book. No one's remaking Frankenstein. Frankenstein's a book. Anybody can make Frankenstein. So
And we were promised a sequel. God damn it!
to what?
To Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah,
It ends to be continued.
Yes.
Ming the Merciless gets his
That's right.
ring at the end.
He does his maniacal laugh.
Maniacal laugh.
Yes, he says it just like that. Maniacal laugh. Yeah, we never got. And it's Max von Sydow is amazing as Ming the Merciless. If you haven't seen the 1980 Flash Gordon, go see it. I remember I had a contest. We had a contest as to who to bring the gayest movie. And someone brought like Hedwig and the Angry Itch, and someone else brought Rocky Horror, and I brought the 1980 version of Flash Gordon, and I won for the gayest movie.
So what's your final answer?
A lot of sequence. Count the sequins in the Flash Gordon movie. Do I have to have a final answer?
I mean, I did go with Die Hard and Lethal Weapon too. So it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be definitive, I
guess.
guess. And
I
you know,
guess-
we already said we're going to change the flavor as soon as we
Right.
turn the mics off. Like,
I mean,
you
if
remember?
Flash Gordon? Barbarella.
There you go.
There it is. I'll go Barbarella
Split all the differences.
for fantasy film, which is interesting because Danger Diabolique and Barbarella and the 1980 Flash Gordon were all produced by Dino De Laurentiis. So if you want to give yourself a nice comic book trilogy of 3 really funky, weird, colorful movies, treat yourself to Danger Diabolique, Barbarella, and the 1980 Flash Gordon.
For myself, I was going to go with Fury Road. But then I'm like, that's kind of too recent. Is there anything that we can dig a little deeper? And while you're talking, I'm looking at the poster behind you, and I'm like, that's more of a fantasy movie.
Yes, 100%.
And I used to watch the shit out of that movie. I mean, it's more Chinese fantasy, but it's still fantasy. So I'm gonna go with Big Trouble in Little China. I'm gonna go with that poster.
That's a great movie.
I'm gonna go with that in this category.
Big Trouble in Little China, a great fantasy film. Lots of action and adventure as well, and comedy. And I think in the 80s they did a lot of genre bending, where you have this idea of we're going to give them a little bit of everything. We're giving them a little sci-fi, a little fantasy, a little horror, little laughs, and kind of try to build that audience up.
Trucker movie.
Trucker. Originally, it was going to be a Western. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Well, that technically, Kurt Russell's not the star. It's his partner that's actually the star of that movie. But Kurt Russell has the star power, so they build it off of him.
Yeah.
But if you watch that movie, he does not have any of the heroic traits. It's his buddy that has all the heroic traits.
Yes, he's just there for the ride.
Right.
But he definitely is wearing he's got the hero tank top on, so everybody's looking at him. But yeah, that movie was going to be a Western, Big Trouble in Little China, and then they, I guess, figured it would be too expensive to do it as a Western. And they just modernized it. So
And just brought it to the future.
That's a weird thing to try to watch that movie and try to imagine it happening in the 1800s.
Okay.
Are we wrapping this up?
We're wrapping it up.
Are we wrapping it up for good?
Oh no, we got one more segment,
One
but
more segment.
we're
going to a commercial.
They've
All
got
right.
They've got extra with this one because we went way over in this portion. So they got 10 minutes more.
Whoa! Extra.
This episode now comes with 10 minutes more.
But not more Lloyd. Just 20% more raisins. All right, we're gonna go to a break and we'll be right back.
Award-winning motion picture producer Samuel L. Bronkowitz.
I have spent a lifetime in the motion picture industry. Now, after 50 years in Hollywood, I have finally produced what I feel is the finest motion picture ever made. I have called it the Kentucky Fried Movie. The Kentucky Fried Movie heralds the return to traditional values.
I'm not wearing any pants. Film at 11.
It is a film of heartfelt passion, a great love story.
Oh, take me to the drive-in. Prove you love me.
It explores the subtle nuances of interpersonal relationships. Of course, there are occasional moments of comic relief. The Kentucky Fried Movie is a film that demands the greatest performances from the finest actors of the cinema.
Hey, look, Wally. Wally. Will you?
I tell you, this building is unsafe.
City's in flames. The National Guard is powerless to deal with the situation. Governor, what are we going to do?
An anticipated 10% price hike across the board on petroleum products.
I invite every man, woman, and child to share with me the joy and warmth of the Kentucky Fried Movie.
Delicious. The popcorn here.
We got the popcorn going. Paul and I are both going to have popcorn along by the end of this podcast.
I started with it, so we're okay.
So, I mean, we can go on and on. I mean, we're probably getting down to some of the major ones for us, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna drop some of these.
Uh-huh.
If we ever decide to come back to it, maybe we'll revise the list in a future episode.
I mean, I feel like we could almost do the same list and have different movies.
Because I'm sure once we listen to it, it's like, we didn't mention.
Yeah.
We forgot to talk about.
The two of us are sleep deprived right now. We're going to listen to this and go, we sound like a couple of tools. I wouldn't say that movie.
Why would I go with that movie when I could have gone with?
Yeah. So I think we'll come back. We can come back.
We can come back to it. Mm-hmm. So we'll go to what we have set aside here for the final.
I like talking about
final
movies,
countdown,
but I like watching movies. I really like watching movies more than I like talking about them.
And then when you watch that movie, you're like, "This is my favorite movie right now."
The last movie I saw was my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Oh, so that's Batman versus Two-Face?
Yes, that's my new favorite film. Okay, what's
I don't think I've watched a movie since then.
I want to see. What do you want to see right now? You have a list of things you want to see?
Whatever's the next movie coming out. What's
you
the
saw
next movie coming
Incredibles
out?
2 already?
I saw Incredibles 2.
All right.
I liked
want
it.
to see it.
You saw
Solo.
I saw Solo.
Solo also.
I didn't like it.
Okay.
I didn't like. I mean, it's okay.
We can not talk about that later.
It's eye candy. I'll give it eye candy. But as far as story,
what about Deadpool 2? You saw that too?
I saw Deadpool 2.
Damn it.
I loved that one.
I don't know.
You and I were talking about a thing where the more modern stuff now is that they've been re-editing trailers to fool you, so that when you go in there, it's not a spoiled. So like Marvel's been doing that a lot, where Thanos and Captain America are going at it, but if you look at Thanos' gauntlet, he only has 2 gemstones.
Yes, right.
Versus in the movie when he has pretty much all.
Also, they have the
spoilers.
Hulk, just the Hulk as the Hulk.
The Hulk as the Hulk. He's not even in the Hulkbuster. Although somebody said that might actually be Infinity War 2. That might be the sequel. That just might be a scene that they already shot and they just already rendered it out. Maybe.
But still, that's not the movie they're advertising.
But Thor also notoriously he had both eyes animated, but in the movie he was missing an eye. But the Deadpool 2, I love what they did. I'm not going to spoil it for you because I know you didn't see it. I'm not going to spoil it for the audience. But the commercials, the advertising, spent a huge amount of time on this one aspect, and this is that was like their selling point to this movie. And that movie is a second of the film. That's like one full second of the film, and it's like the ultimate Deadpool trolling. He just trolled the audience. Everybody wanted to see this one bit, and no,
that's funny.
Fooled you.
Well, and with Deadpool, what else can you expect but the unexpected, really?
Right.
All right. So
let's go with the final. We'll go down to the final 4 here.
So we're jumping down to the final 4.
Final 4. So we'll go with the horror.
Fantasy sports ball.
Horror.
Oh, okay. This is my category, right?
Right.
Horror host.
So this, it's cult. Now again, is the cult section usually within the horror section? If you're in your virtual VHS rental place,
sometimes. My definition of a cult movie is a movie that people intellectually obsess on, and typically will watch over and over and over again, and they will try to proselytize it to their friends. That's the cult aspect, where it has a religious aspect to it.
Now, is cult also classified as the indie Kind of, because usually these are shoestring budget kind of movies.
Sometimes they do.
I mean, I guess I couldn't say it was horror because a lot of John Walters films are considered cult.
John Waters. John Waters. John Walters is really underground.
Yeah, and Jonathan Winters.
Boy,
what about his movies?
Very underground. I mean, John Waters films are hard to even define as cult movies because I feel like people do obsess on his movies, but to be honest, the way I feel about John Waters is I like talking about John Waters, and I like talking about his films, but his films are so upsetting to watch that they're not ones that I feel like putting on and watching over and over and over again. It's not like Rocky Horror where I can just see that movie, 40 times.
You don't want to watch somebody eat dog shit?
I watch you eat dog shit, Paul. I don't need a movie for that.
That wasn't dog shit. That was McDonald's.
The McShits came later.
The McShits came later.
All right.
So we'll go with horror then,
All right, we'll go with horror. A lot of great horror films. To be honest, one of my all-time favorite horror films is also a comedy, also a sequel of sorts, I guess. It's definitely a spiritual sequel.
Dances with Wolves?
No, this is Return of the Living Dead.
Okay, I can see that. Now, is that would be considered cult?
It's kind of a cult film, yeah.
That would be kind of considered cult.
Because people obsess on that movie and they talk about the details of it. They know the lines from it by heart. I mean, to me, that's a real cult movie. I think a lot of times people say, "Oh, it's cult," but they really mean it's obscure. This is a movie no one's ever heard of or very few people know about. Very few people knowing about it doesn't make it a cult film. I mean, not in my definition. I think that might be someone's definition of cult. Just obscurity doesn't make it cult. It makes it an oddity. It makes it interesting. Oh, I've never heard of this. Oh, this is weird, But like Santa Claus meets the Ice Cream Bunny. It's not a cult movie. I don't think, because people don't really want to watch it more than once.
However, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians
might be a cult movie, right. Yeah, because people do watch it over and over again.
I don't know who, but
yeah, I don't know who.
I think that might have been one of the first VHSs we ever owned.
But let's talk about Return of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead was directed or written and directed by Dan O'Bannon, who created Alien, which I would also feel like is one of the great horror films, even though it's also a sci-fi film. Basically, there is it implies that the events of Night of the Living Dead are true, and that one of the zombies from the original Night of the Living Dead is in a canister underneath a medical supply building, and this kid on his first day of the job and his boss accidentally kick open this canister and start the whole thing over again, where they've got zombies that they have to deal with, and meanwhile the kid's friends, who are all punk rockers, are waiting for him across the street in the abandoned cemetery. And these characters are so interesting and so likable. And it is
so nude.
Yeah, there's Trash, who's nude. Trash is taking her clothes off again. I like it spooky.
Even though technically she's not nude. They
made a rubber merkin for her, so she's smooth from the waist down like a Ken doll. And it's upsetting. If you really, that's more upsetting than there being of a JJ there.
Have you ever seen the documentary? And they're interviewing, they're asking her the question about it, and they come back to one of the other guys that was in the scene with her, and he goes, "Yeah, I think I just started a new fetish for myself by seeing that scene." He's like, from that day forward, from that scene forward, that was his fetish.
It's his fetish. Yes, I've heard of crotchless panties, but a crotchless dancer I've never seen before. But yeah, that is an interesting scene where she's dancing nude on top of the crypt, right? Again, what's interesting about the punk rockers, and of course it's all tongue in cheek. They're kind of making fun of the formula of the whole idea of a horror movie. But I think that what's great about this movie, other than the fact that it has Linnea Quigley nude or sort of nude, just leg warmers and a rubber merkin,
and a smile,
and some
piercings.
The thing about, and a terrible wig. That's the sad thing, is that all the and not to get sexist here, but all the men in this movie either shave their heads or cut their hair weird or dye their hair weird so they could be a punk, or got their ears pierced, whatever it took for the role.
They didn't want them to do it. The producers didn't want them to do it. They were going to put them all in wigs, and they said, "Screw this!" And they went to a local shop and had it done.
Dedication, right? We're gonna go downtown. Where do the punks get their hair done? Okay, we're gonna look like real punks. And
now the only complaint I heard was that they went to a place where the style only was supposed to last for a day, and the dye job and stuff was only going to last for a day, and then it was like the department, the was whatever makeup department had to deal with it and had to figure out how to make it last a little bit longer.
The ladies in this film, like Trash or Casey, they don't look like punk rockers very much.
No,
and their wigs are terrible.
And there's the one guy that's not really punk. He's kind of dressed.
Well, he's like a new wave kid. At least he's got a look, though. He's got a new wave look. Anyway, 80s film, 80s affects for the time. They weren't trying to be nostalgic. They were trying to be, on time with this movie. It was basically trying to do a modern. John Russo, who was the co-creator of the original Night of the Living Dead, was the producer, and they were trying to. George A. Romero split off and went his direction and did more serious movies, and then John Russo split his own direction and did more satirical movies or funny movies.
And I think they tried to sue them for the Of the Dead. They wanted the Of the Dead removed at one point.
Is that true?
I think so. I think I heard that because they didn't want it to be confused with the other thing.
Well, it's the Living Dead, right? Because we've got the dead ones and then the Living Dead ones. So you've got Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead is the one where Russo and Romero both work together. Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Land of the Dead, that's all Romero. And then Return of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead Part 2, Return of the Living Dead Part 3, Return of the Living Dead. Oh, those two awful ones. Please do yourself a favor and never ever seek out the Necropolis, Return of the Living Dead from the Sci-Fi Channel.
Rave to the Grave.
And Rave to the Grave. Please, please, give some self-respect, please. Don't seek those out.
See, my exposure to the series is I never saw 1 and 2 until much, much later. My
say,
exposure
3?
was 3.
Oh, okay.
3 was the first one because, and it was just a weird, because it was the photographic cover with her and all the
glass,
all the glass and stuff. And it's like, what is this? What is this? Why does she have piercings like that?
And I guess, again, they were trying to modernize it and make her more, instead of punk, she was goth, right? So she's cutting herself.
Yeah, well, that film came out, 90s? So
yeah. So again, they weren't trying to be nostalgic, but they got there. That's a very nostalgic film to watch today. The original Return of the Living Dead. And what I was going to come back to say is that the punks and the old people, the working class punks and the working class older people, establishment adults, have to work together to come against this thing. So it's not like the authority figures versus the punks. It's like the old people and the young people working together to fight a common enemy, which I liked. And it has some laughs in it. It's got some real scares in it. Some of the greatest movie monsters, Tarman,
that woman,
the witch.
Yes,
all the zombies are very individual and look different.
They're very down ending.
And a very down ending.
Nobody makes it,
but somehow still fun. Like that's the weird thing. It's like Dr. Strangelove, where it's so satirical that even though the ending is a downer, you don't come away from it feeling sad about the situation. It's not like, oh, I'm so sad. I never want to see that again. It's like, that was fun. Everybody died, but I had a good time at the movies. All right.
I don't know, because horror is not really my go-to. I mean, I'm more comedy and action adventure. I mean, a lot of this stuff is like later on discovery into the Friday the 13th. No, Nightmare on Elm Street. I never really watched any of the Friday 13th, but Nightmare on Elm Street was kind of that kind of go-to. I believe it's 4 is the one that I remember the most. That's the one I've seen in the theater. I'm just going to have to go with one of those for now, because right now I can't really think of
what, Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, I guess. Let's go with 3. 3's the better of them all.
What is that, like Dream Warriors?
That's the Dream Warriors.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with that one.
Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors. let me throw something else out there too. In the horror category, since this is sort of my category, I do love the original Night of the Living Dead. Don't get me wrong, and I do love classic horror movies. The Invisible Man, if you want to do a classic Universal monster, I think that's probably my favorite of those ones. I do enjoy Frankenstein. Son of Frankenstein is my favorite of the Frankenstein ones.
Monster Squad.
And of later 80s movies, I do like Monster Squad. And I even more so, also Fred Drecker movie, one of my all-time go-to favorites. Whenever I've got a party happening here and I want to put on a fun horror movie, Night of the Creeps. Night of the Creeps is fun, you know. The good news is your dates are here. The bad news, they're dead.
They're creepy.
No, that's not... That's a different movie. But it's
Beware
great.
of the Blob. We got to throw that out there.
The Blob.
We need to
hashtag
Blob.
Yeah, and always the Blob. I mean, I watch it every
80s Blob or 50s Blob?
58 Blob or 88 Blob, both.
Both?
Yeah, and I feel the same way about John Carpenter's The Thing versus the Howard Hawks thing. Both, because they're so different that if you want aspects of one, you don't necessarily want aspects of the other. Howard Hawks' The Thing is classic, so good, and The Thing is really scary, like genuinely scary. And the same with the '80s Blob, well crafted and gross. And the original Blob is classic, and it's so wholesome. Like it's like the only horror movie where they believe the teenagers.
Yeah.
You know,
I sat there with my then 11-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
I think like last year was the first time I've ever seen the 50s
Blob
from beginning to end.
And
I'd assume that I've seen it at some point in time, but that's
it's an entertaining movie, and in a weird way, that's when a movie becomes a cult movie too, because it's like, especially with the aspect of Blobfest, it's this tradition where we watch it over and over and over again. We know all the words, and we know it by heart, and we still keep watching it. And we want to tell our friends about it. Okay.
All right. So then what's cult?
Cult, as I had said before, intellectually obsess on. And in my life, there are probably two films that I intellectually obsess on the most as far as what I would consider cult classics. Well, there's a lot. I mean, I guess cult is probably my genre even more than horror, to be honest. I like things that are underappreciated and overlooked. And we're going back to Plan 9 from Outer Space. Plan 9 from Outer Space, I think, is the penultimate cult movie. Whenever I watch it, it feels like it's 3 a.m. in the morning, and I like that feeling. And even though I've seen it a million times, if it's on TV, I have to stop what I'm doing and I start watching it all over again. I love the lines of dialogue. There's so much dumb lines in that movie, like, your ancient juvenile minds. Your ancient juvenile minds? Those words even go together.
This is why he wrote the script in 2 days.
Yeah, you know. I really love all of the aspects of it. Modern women, they've been like that all through the ages. There's so many great things. Knocking over the tombstone, all the things that people laugh at. Like, I remember somebody gave me a gift. One of my dearly departed fans, we miss you, Miss Mary, wherever you are. She gave me a VHS tape of the 50 worst movies ever made. And had this really smarmy guy going, oh, it's daytime, then it's nighttime, then it's daytime again. What were they thinking? And oh, this dialogue's so bad. And oh, they knocked over a tombstone. And it's like, that's when I really realized the whole they're not bad movies, just misunderstood things. Like, I don't ever want to sound like that asshole. It's like, you know what? The worst movies of all time.
I now know how I'm going to write my next script. Hold on, I got to take notes. Go ahead.
The worst films of all time aren't worth making witty commentary on top of. You know, I always say this, and I'll say it again. The worst film of all time is a made-for-TV Disease of the Week movie with Meredith Baxter Birney from, that nobody remembers the name of, or some Ashton Kutcher romantic comedy from 5 years ago that nobody remembers the name of. I mean, the worst films of all time.
Dude, Where's My Car?
The worst films of all time aren't aren't worth making a smarmy show about yourself around.
And then there's Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
Who's done nothing but do that.
Because they're actually, it takes a genius to keep going with that flimsy of a premise. You know, I mean, if those guys are brilliant writers, and that's why that show, that's why every room full of drunk guys thinks they can do what the guys on Mystery Science Theater 3000 can do, and they can't. Because I've heard it. People send me their escape tapes all the time. Oh, we riff on movies. Listen to this, and it's not as good as Mystery Science Theater. Mystery Science Theater is certainly, and again, there's nothing wrong with heckling a movie. There's nothing wrong with making comments about it. We all do it. I certainly do it. You know, I like having fun with a movie. I like making fun of a movie. I like making fun of everything. I do satire. That's my thing. I just feel like a lot of these movies are easy targets. And but yeah, I would say Plan 9 from Outer Space would be my cult movie. What about you, Paul?
I think my go-to would probably be Frankenhooker. Another USA Up All Night classic.
Wow.
And not only because it tied back to things later on in life, which was so weird. We're seeing that movie on that show on the TV.
Yeah.
And then it was like, this is weird, this is stupid, this is dumb.
Yeah.
And then graduating high school and working on my first film, I got to work with the guy who was the lighting director on our film. And, you know, you try to get to know everybody. He's like, oh, what other projects have you worked on and stuff? And he goes, well, have you heard of Basket Case 1 and 2? It's like, yeah. Yeah, he's like, I was lighting director for that. It's the same director who did Frankenhooker, and I'm lighting director in that, too.
Henenlotter, right?
So,
Frank Henenlotter?
I think so. So, yeah, the guy I worked with, he was lighting director. And then it was like, well, there's a scene where I cameo in. So now we had to go rent the movie. You know, this is this movie that I barely remember from television. Now we're actually watching it frame by frame just to find this guy. And it's like, this is such a stupid movie, but it's kind of likable too. It's just like, and then the same guy was also the lighting director of The Adventures of Pete and Pete on Nickelodeon.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So the guy who did Frankenhooker worked on Pete and Pete.
Adventures of Pete and Pete, yes. And then
and Frankenhooker is one of those where people, they parrot the lines and they'll watch over and over again, you know.
Looking for a good time.
Looking for some action. Got any money? Want a date? Did you have have you seen the box?
I've seen the box. Well, our video store, the box didn't work, but I remember
the video box famously for Frankenhooker, when you had a button that you pushed on it, and then her little electrodes on her neck lit up, I think. Or she just talked. I can't remember if she just talked or if she lit up and
talked. I think she might have just talked. I don't think it lit up.
But she said all her I think she just said, want a date, right? Is that all that she said?
I think that's one of them, yeah.
And we don't have that one here. We have the Dead Pit VHS, where it's just the green eyes that light up on the front of the box. But that was a short-lived trend of having like electronics inside your video box to sell videotape.
Because didn't one of the other ones, didn't Night of the Living Dead or something else have a similar box cover?
Well,
the sequel, Night of the Living Dead 2.
Oh, didn't that have it had a voice on it?
Not so much a voice, but it had something that lit up, or the box.
Well, Dead Pit.
Okay.
So, which is a zombie movie, but I don't know. I'm not sure. There might be a Night of the Living Dead one that had that.
Okay.
I can't think off the top of my head though.
All right, so we're over again. So I'm going to skip guilty pleasure and go right to disliked, and we can end on disliked.
All right.
This long voyage, we're going to end on what we hate.
Yeah. Well, movies that I really dislike. Paul, do you want to go first on this?
I mean, the thing with me is like most of the time I just want to be entertained.
Yeah.
If I'm entertained, if that baseline is solved, I don't really dislike a whole hell of a lot of movies. You know, I can go and I can watch Pacific Rim, and I can enjoy that movie even though people are like, the plot line sucks and they don't do this and they don't do that. But it's like, I don't give a shit. I'm entertained by that. You know, I'm entertained by Fast and the Furious. They are dumb ass movies, but I'm entertained by it. But I guess if I have to pick a disliked, I'm going to say the Michael Bay Transformers series.
Oh wow, the whole series. Yeah, I don't like.
I mean, I don't know. Either. I mean, it was. I mean, the first one was okay, and then it was diminishing returns.
Really like the only thing I don't want to get real. I don't want to get social or politically charged here, but I feel like there's like no minorities in those films that have any kind of ethics or morals or scruples or loyalty. You know, it's like they're immediately the minority character like sells out their friend or whatever, or you know, they go and call like the Indian tech support guy who's like picking his nose, and it's like, I don't know. It just makes me sad. And I think in the second Transformers movie, they like had the jive talking robots or whatever, and it's like, that stuff just really makes me sad.
And that's one of those things where I made an exception. My daughter was just getting into Transformers at the time. She really liked the first movie, and I took her to the theater to see the second movie, and I'm shrinking in the seat and stuff when I'm under his balls, you know? And it's like, oh, I don't want to be sitting here with my young daughter listening to this crap. And, you know, and it just, they're all like sharp, angular looking that you can't tell who's who when they're fighting, and it's just a headache just to watch. And it just was diminishing returns. Each sequel came out. I mean, the last one that came out, the fifth movie, I didn't even bother to see. I'm like, you know what? I don't need to see this crap anymore. If I don't go to see this crap, you know, they don't have my money. If more people would just not go, maybe they'll make it better.
Right.
But now there's like a Bumblebee movie, and I'm looking, and they're like, oh, look, you know, we were calling back to the series. And I'm like, asshole should have done that from the beginning. Don't make a prequel. I hate fucking prequels to begin with.
That's a whole podcast is prequels.
Yes. So, I mean, if I have to pick the worst movie, should I pick the fifth one because I never saw it? Because I just didn't even bother? I mean, if I have to pick one...
You don't have to pick one. You can just say all the Transformers.
I'm just going to say all the, and I want to be specific, all the Michael Bay Transformers, because I love the 85 one. We skipped over the animation, cartoon. And that would have been my pick, was the 85 cartoon.
Yeah, which is, we used to do this game where we would name famous people, and you had to guess what movie. And it would be like, you know, Leonard Nimoy, Orson Welles, and Weird Al Yankovic, or whatever.
Eric Idle.
Eric Idle, right. And they're like, what movie has all that in it? And then it's the Transformers movie, you know. But we used to do that all the time, where we would pick, we would just say the names of a bunch of people who were on a project.
I'm trying to think whose Hot Rod is. Because he was the heartthrob. He was in Pretty in Pink and all that. He was part of that Brat Pat whole shit.
What is it? Oh, Judd Nelson.
Judd Nelson. That's it. He was the voice of Hot Rod. That's another celebrity.
Right. So that's a great one to play for Movie Buff, right?
And,
if we were playing Movie
Robert
Buff,
Stack.
If we had all those, if we were playing all those actors, you're like, what the hell?
What the hell are you
doing? What
doing?
is this?
Robert Stack?
So,
you know, Dixie Road right away would just say Unsolved Mysteries and just call it a day.
That's probably true. She changed the whole direction of the round.
So go ahead, your turn.
Man, you know, we talked about Free Jack last time. That was a really terrible movie, but I've kind of warmed up to Free Jack. I remember White Hot Rage the first time I saw Armageddon on television. I just felt like my intelligence was being insulted.
I've seen both of those movies in theater, Armageddon and Deep Impact.
Gosh. But a lot of times, and I wish I could remember the names of some of them, but there are a lot of horror movies where they're kind of like, I'll give you an example. And a lot of people like this movie. A lot of horror people like this movie. But Human Centipede.
Okay.
Human Centipede, you know, I get it. It's uncomfortable. It's this whole thing where people are their rectums are attached to the person in front of them's lips in a chain.
Now you just described the person sitting across from me. How about describing the movie? People don't need to know how I sit in this chair.
You've got one esophagus connecting three people somehow, and
essentially it's a movie about eating shit.
Yeah, and we're eating shit for 2 hours. And there are some humorous aspects of it. I think my favorite scene is when the mad scientist is talking about his 3 dog. Like he had a dog. He had done the same experiment with a dog, and the dog died. So he's lamenting his dog that died at the beginning of the movie. And I kind of thought that was funny that this German doctor who's kind of like missing his weird experiment dog. But the thing about that movie is that, and again, it's not even like, oh, it's so raw, I can't handle it, or oh, it's I'm so old, I don't get it. It's like, it's not grossing me out. It's boring the crap out of me because it's just like,
and you don't want the next person behind you to eat that
2
crap.
hours of crying and holding hands and like, I don't like crying in my horror movies. You know, I think horror is a fun genre. You know, there are 2 kinds of roller coasters. There's a roller coaster that you want to run right back and get back on. And then there's the roller coaster where you kiss the ground and like never want to get on again. I like the kind of roller coaster where you want to get back on it.
take 5 seconds, vomit, and get back on.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
And sometimes I like those movies where like, whoa, I survived that, and whoa. But this was not a whoa. Like I said, it wasn't like, oh, it disturbed me so bad. It just, I felt like it was wasting my time. It's like, really, this premise would have made a 20-minute movie. It really is a whole movie with this one premise, and you just have to wait it out. And there's another movie called I think it's called Frozen, not the Disney movie.
Okay.
But
Just let it go,
there are
man.
people who were stuck on a chairlift in a ski lift.
Okay.
And they all freeze to death. And like that's the whole movie. And it's like I think one of them falls off the ski lift and is eaten by wolves or something. Well, they all die.
Sandworms.
And it's slow and excruciating. And it's just like it's not like, oh, I'm an old man. I don't get it. Oh, it's so disturbing. It's like, no, it's boring the crap out of me. It's like, is this all this movie is about? And then this sort of like crying and over emotive kind of garbage. I just feel
Does
like
Blair Witch rank in there?
does that rank it? I don't know. I like Blair
at least
Witch.
go
all right.
somewhere.
It goes somewhere, and it has kind of a mystery to it, and I think, and at least it was fresh at that time, So I don't know, and like I guess Hostel, gets that rap for being the torture porn movie, or the Saw movies. The Saw movies at least are creative. It's like this. They have sort of a Dr. Phibes kind of aspect where it's like, well, you reach your hand in here, and if you do this thing, and
Yeah.
it's
But you
really
can't pull your hand back out because now you got razors in there.
whatever.
Hypodermic needles.
Rube Goldberg's revenge strategies.
I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to throw this out.
I mean, it's at least there's, I guess, some cleverness in the mechanics of all the death traps he creates for people.
The Purge? Does that rank up there too?
Probably. I am not interested in seeing The Purge.
I've never seen it even.
I'm not interested in it. No, it's just like, again, it's like, it's not like it's like I couldn't handle it. It just seemed like a waste of my time. I need to have a little more going on than that. It's just excruciating. It's like getting a tooth drilled, So I don't know. That's sort of like your Transformers answer, where I just totally went across a whole genre. But
torture porn genre.
I like fun movies, and I think that to a certain degree, you're making a movie for an audience. You're not necessarily making a movie in spite of your audience. So, I do like to be challenged, certainly, but there's a halfway point between challenging your audience and wasting their time.
And on that note,
thank you for letting us waste your time. And we are going to be back with who knows what we're going to do next time. But this was an interesting diversion. We want to thank Kelly DeMall for inspiring us to do a whole show based on our indecision, based on the fact that we cannot be pinned down for a straight answer on anything.
and for the numbers, we have 12 categories we didn't even touch on.
Wow.
We just skipped over. So
wow.
Maybe there's more fodder for a later episode. Maybe Kelly will get a version 2.0.
And I think what episode
3.0 because we already
what
answered one of
episode
our
is
questions.
this, by the way?
I don't know.
Was this 26 or something like that?
Something like that, because we recorded a couple that
I
are
just think
open-ended.
I just think it's funny that we've been doing this show for so long, and we're just getting down to talking about movies.
Just now. But it's not a not episode because it doesn't end in a
yes, that's true. But I mean, we do talk like generally about movies, but this was like the most. I think we got a lot of bang for our buck.
We talked about all movies.
Talked about a lot of movies today, and again with a show called Cinema Insomnia, and you steeped so much in fandom, you would think there would be more movie talk potentially, but we go all over the place. But we just go where it goes.
So next week we're going to talk about television shows.
Why?
I don't know.
We could. I mean, we have a television show.
We'll talk about music.
Maybe we should actually talk about our own television
How about
show.
we talk about music? How about we talk about...
You're a music guy, Paul.
How about we talk about foreign films?
Foreign films?
How about we talk about sports? That's the one something that
we would... yeah. That would be a short show.
At least I have a little bit of...
That would be like a 5-minute show.
We could talk about hockey and baseball, and then that's probably about the end of it for me.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of what counts as a sport for me.
Darts.
Darts. I might talk about it. Maybe bowling, maybe. Miniature golf, is that a sport?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Should.
All right. Thank you once again for letting us sitting in the dark with us and chatting about films.
Can I turn the lights on now?
And watch movies. Watch them. Stop talking about them. Just watch them and enjoy them.
And quit attacking everybody over them.
They're magical if you let them be. And again, every movie is not. Let me try this again.
Take two.
It says what you think about a movie says more about you than what it says about that movie. So you're really telling people about yourself when you tell people how you feel about a movie, because a movie is just pictures and noise. It just plays, and the only life it has is the life you bring to it. So if it's good or it's bad, it's what you're reflecting. It's not necessarily what's inherently there. So keep that in mind when you're trolling people on the internet. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Sleepless Knights Podcast, or should we say, pODDcast.
pODDcast.
Emphasis on the odd. Our theme is by Mars Homeworld at Dead House Music. Our opening announcement is by Ophelia Necro. She does a radio show called Suicide Watch. And you could reach Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com, or find me on YouTube, YouTube/Mr. Lobo. MISTERLOBO. Mr. Lobo on Facebook, Facebook/MR.LOBO, or on Twitter, at Mr. Lobo, MISTERLOBO.
Or you can find myself, Paul Sanders, or better known as BESTOW TV, at BESTOW.TV, on YouTube /BESTOW TV, on Twitter at BESTOWPROD, PROD, and on Facebook, BESTOW TV.
If you want to place an advertisement with this podcast, and gosh, why wouldn't you? We could be talking about you right now. Contact us, Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com. That's MRLOBO @CINEMAINSOMNIA.com. Or support us on Patreon. Patreon supporters get to hear this podcast before anyone else, and a lot of other great stuff, right, Paul?
Sure.
Doesn't get it better than that, right? So come join the fun at patreons.com/cinemainsomnia. That's patreon.com/cinemainsomnia. Please stay up with us next week for another Sleepless Knights podcast. Or should we say, pODDcast.
pODDcast.
The best thing about being an insomniac is never having to say goodnight.
Good night.